Hello and welcome to the Hey Boomer Show. My name is Wendy Green and I am your host for Hey Boomer. And Hey Boomer is a show for those of us who believe that we are never too old to set another goal or dream a new dream. I am on a mission to help to inspire and support adults into the second act of life. Together we are learning and sharing stories, finding new beginnings, and confronting endings and transitions. We are evolving, not retiring, and we are defining what this next stage of our lives will look like. Today's story is about my experience of becoming the first girl page in the United States, but I served in the Florida State Senate because Washington, D.C. would not allow girl pages. This is a story of a triumph and resilience and courage and overcoming some obstacles that presented quite a challenge. So I am excited to share this story with you today, and I hope that you all find it useful and meaningful. Hi, Thelma. I wanted to thank the people that walked with me yesterday for the Grandma Gatewood hike in support of Prime Time for Women. We walked at Table Rock State Park on Carrick Creek Trail, and there was David and Gail and Doris and Kathy and Tiffany and myself, and it was an absolutely gorgeous fall day, wonderful day to hike and to enjoy that. So thank you all for joining me for that walk. Hi, Melody. All right, so I always start with a bio. So let's start with a bio. Hi, David. Just a little bit about myself. Hi, Doris. So now, obviously, I am the host of Hey Boomer. But before that, back in the day, when I went back to school as a single parent and graduated with a computer science degree from the University of North Carolina at Asheville. I started in computer programming, which was not my first love for sure, but it was certainly a way to support the kids. But from there, I transitioned into customer support and training, technical training with Digital Equipment Corporation. And it was at Digital that I was able to create the U.S. Expertise Center, which was really a highlight of my career because I got to travel all over the world with that. So that was pretty exciting. As Digital started downsizing, I ended up moving to Maryland to work for a company there. And in 2001, I got a certificate from Georgetown in change leadership. And then in 2013, I became certified as a life coach. So that has moved me out of the technical field and more into the coaching kinds of fields. I also served as president of the Reedy River Rotary Club for 2 terms here in Greenville, South Carolina. I have 2 loving, responsible children and 4 beautiful grandchildren. And as part of Hey Boomer, I also offer a 6-week What's Next group coaching program to help people find the vision for their life. So I wanted to start the story. Some people, turns out, don't really even know what a page is. So a page is someone who serves in the Senate or the Congress, and they serve for their senator or for a group of senators, and they deliver documents, and they sometimes answer phone calls. They do whatever is necessary to set up the Senate and get it ready for its meetings, or the House of Representatives. They are really errand runners more than anything else. But it's a time for high school students to get an opportunity to experience what it is in government that kind of makes it run, and how you speak to and listen to the makings of laws. So it's an interesting experience. And I first found out about being a page when I was about, I want to say 13 or 14 years old. My father had his own advertising and public relations firm, and he represented a lot of statewide offices, but he also knew several of our congressmen that were up in Washington. So we were visiting in Washington, and I saw all these kids on the floor, looking very busy. And I thought, that looks cool. I want to do that. And I never realized at the time that the only kids I saw on the floor were boys. There were no girls. So I found out that you had to be 16 to be qualified to be a page, still not registering that you also had to be a boy. So when I turned 16, I wrote to my two Florida state congressmen who my dad knew and asked if they would appoint me to be their page. And their response was, "We don't have pages in Washington." So as I called this show, this episode, The Reluctant Activist, at that point, at 16, really didn't want to make big waves or, get all kinds of riled up. So I just wanted to be a page. So I said, well, okay, I guess no girls. And my dad, the PR guy that he was, said, "No way. We're going to write a letter to Nixon," who was obviously our president then. So we drafted a letter to Nixon, but that wasn't all we did. All right. So Dad called the Associated Press and United Press International, and we put out a press release. And suddenly there were some stories about Wendy Green writes to Nixon about being a page in Congress. And then Nixon writes back another story. And Nixon writes back and says, "I'm sorry, there is nothing I can do. I have no power over whether Congress allows girls or not." So I looked at my dad and I said, "I guess there's nothing we can do, Dad." And he said, "We're not done. We're going to write to all the congressmen, and we're going to have your friends come over, and we're going to have an envelope addressing party, and we're going to address and stamp all these envelopes with all these letters to all the congressmen. And we're going to call the press again, and they're going to come in and take pictures of you all doing this." And that's what we did. So suddenly, this became a bigger story because think about the time. This was the early 70s. Well, this was 1970, right? Late 69, early 70s. And the women's movement was really on an upward trajectory then. So suddenly this became a big story. And I was suddenly being followed around campus with cameras. And I was being called to the principal's office because radio stations, particularly WLS out of Chicago, were calling to do interviews with this girl who wanted to be the first girl page in Congress. That was hard for me. Like I said, I was 16. I just wanted to be a normal teenager. I kind of wanted to blend in, and having the cameras in school and all the interruptions in school, people started saying, "Why do you want to be a page? Why not be a whole book? Why do you want a man's job?" Oh, that one got me because I was like, this is not a man's job. A girl can do this job too. I mean, we're just doing errands in the Senate or the Congress. So, some highlights of this were that I got a call one day from a show in Chicago called The Chicago Show. The Chicago Show was like Good Morning America. And they called and said, "Can you come up and be on the show?" So I was like, "Yeah, ask my parents. I don't know." So my parents said yes, and off I went by myself on an airplane off to Chicago. Um, Fortunately, I befriended the stewardesses because, I've never been to Chicago, and they helped me find my hotel. They actually invited me to dinner. It was I was very grateful that they were there. And the next morning, the producer from the Chicago show picked me up, and we went to the studio. And one of the highlights, the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band was on the Chicago show. I was so excited. And then the show was over, and we had some time before I had to fly home. So the producer said, "Well, what would you like to do or see in Chicago?" I said, "Well, WLS has been calling me regularly from Chicago. Maybe we can go by there." So we drive to WLS. We go up to the radio station, which is in a big tower, and they bring me into the studio where they're on air live, and the DJ on air says, "You'll never guess who's here." And my first reaction was, "Who?" And he said, "Wendy Green." It was really beyond my scope of realism. I couldn't even fathom that people outside of my little community in Miami or my family knew who Wendy Green was, but suddenly it was a big story. My dad was doing a clipping service, and we were getting clips from newspapers all over the country. Um, it was also an interesting period of time. There was an article in one of the papers that said women in Congress gave her, Wendy, the most encouragement, along with an 82-year-old representative from New York, whose name was Emanuel Seller, who asked, "Does she wear a miniskirt, and is she attractive? Then I have no objections." That was the time. So I finally got a call one day from Senator Richard Stone, who was our senator in Florida. And he asked if I would like to be his page in the Florida State Senate. Of course, again, I said, "You have to ask my parents." And they said yes. So let me backtrack just a moment. The reason that was given for no girl pages in Washington was they had no facilities for girls. They couldn't keep girls safe. They had no housing. They had no, special transportation. You couldn't walk back and forth. So that was their reason. In Tallahassee, I have to tell you, they were not ready for girls either. They first put me up in a house with a woman who was just evil. I'm not even sure why she agreed to having me stay there. She never made me feel welcome. She had strict rules about what I could put in the refrigerator and how much and where and just everything. And there were no adults that were watching out for me. I would get to the Senate in the morning. I would do work in the senator's office. My school had sent up my work from school, and so I would do that. They did have a special time and place for me to work quietly on my own to do my schoolwork because there were no other girl pages there. So there were boys. So I was basically on my own. And the sergeant of arms is actually the one who sets up the rules for the pages in the Senate and the Congress. And the sergeant of arms introduced me to his son, who was a couple of years older than me. And we hit it off initially and went out a few times. And I thought, well, nice good family, right? He's from the sergeant at arms family. That was not true. He was involved in drugs. He was not a nice guy. And the day before I was supposed to come home from my experience in Tallahassee, he decided that was the day he was going to rape me. And that was that was a life-changing experience, as you can imagine. And I felt guilt and shame because he was somebody I knew, right? It's what we call today date rape. And the guilt and shame that goes with that is, well, it must have been my fault. I shouldn't have been there. I must have led him on. I didn't resist hard enough. All of those thoughts and feelings go through your head. And I got back to Florida, back to Miami, to my home. And, it was a celebration. My parents were so proud of me for having served my time as a page in the Florida State Senate. I mean, what a great story it had been. What a great accomplishment that had been. And so there was no way I was going to share what happened to me with my parents and have them, in my mind, be disappointed in me that I had let this happen. I really didn't have anybody to talk to at the time, so it was tough. And then, I went back to my senior year of high school, and I started dating somebody who would become my future husband. And he asked me one day if I was still a virgin. And I said, no. And I still didn't have the words, didn't have the voice to explain what happened. And so he got angry and he stormed out of the house. And then he came back later and he forgave me. And so even though I went off to college for a year, I still felt like I had this huge scarlet letter that I was damaged goods. And he forgave me. He was willing to accept me. So at 19, we got married. And we had 2 beautiful children, for which I am eternally grateful. And it took me a while to realize the impact that all of this had on me, and that I have a voice. I was divorced from him at 28 because he was very controlling, very jealous, and I was not going to have my daughter believe that that was okay. And I had started to get involved in the women's movement. I wanted to go back and finish school. I was starting to become who I needed to be, which was very powerful for me. And once I went back to school, I became more of an activist. That was when I said, okay, I am ready for the women's movement. I am ready to get involved in the Roe v. Wade movement. And I am ready to say, we as women have strength and courage, and we have the rights over our own bodies. We have the right to do the work that we are talented and able to do. We are strong individuals. And so I started to believe that. I still had not shared this story publicly ever, actually, until today. But once I got to Greenville, I started to realize the impact of what happened in Tallahassee had on my life and some of the choices I had made. So I actually went to the Julie Valentine Center here in Greenville, which is like a rape crisis counseling center. And at first I very reluctantly went because I was still of that mindset that this was not a rape that, a stranger that grabbed me into the alley and beat me up. This was somebody that I knew. And even though I said no, I didn't want it, I was forcibly forced into it. I still didn't feel like I was I was entitled to call it rape. And working with the Julie Valentine Center, I realized I was entitled. And again, I found more of my voice. So why am I telling you this story today? I feel like it's an important story to tell. I feel like there are women out here listening that may have had similar experiences. And it's nice to know you're not the only one, even though it's a horrible thing to happen. It's nice to know that I had this wonderful opportunity of being a page in the Florida State Senate, going on the Chicago show, meeting the people at WLS. All of those things were great experiences. And those can never be taken away from me. And at 69, I am defining what this next stage of my life will look like. And what I am defining is a relevant life, a meaningful life, a life filled with courage and passion, and a desire to make the world better in whatever way. So I am still somewhat of a reluctant activist. I don't like being the one on stage in a rally, but I love inspiring and encouraging people. I love seeing people blossom into who they can be. And so I'm learning that I can share stories and use my platform, this Hey Boomer platform, to bring people together so that we are sharing our stories together and we are learning together. And like I said, we are finding new beginnings and we are confronting endings and transitions, and we are still growing into the people we are meant to be. And that is so cool. I just love that. So this is also about the messages we tell ourselves, right? So as I said in the beginning, the rape was, the message I was telling myself was, it's probably my fault. I'm so embarrassed. I have this scarlet letter on myself. Nobody's going to accept me. I'm damaged goods, right? Those messages are not helpful. And we have to stop doing that to ourselves. We have to tell ourselves that we are relevant and that we are meaningful and that we can make a difference. And we do make a difference every day. Every day we make a difference in whatever little thing we do, whether it's smiling at somebody, picking up trash, going out and voting, writing letters, hugging somebody, we make a difference. And we have to tell ourselves that. Stop with the negative messaging. It is okay. I mean, there are times, right? There are times when we have to grieve. And there are times when we have to feel bad about something. And then we move on. Don't get stuck in it. And that's really what I want people to know. And find your voice. And define how you want to be in this next stage of your life. Because this is what we have. We have today. The past is past. Let's let it go. So maybe my story touched somebody to help them feel empowered. Or maybe it touched somebody to say, you are not alone. Or maybe somebody else is feeling inspired now to do something, to make a difference. That's, I believe, what we are here for. So yes, Kathy, find your voice and define what you want this next stage of your life to be like. And that is my story. One more thing. It took 2 years before Washington, D.C. had girl pages. And another year after that they were in the Senate. Another year after that, before they had a girl page in the House of Representatives. So there we go. Okay, so if you want to talk to me about any of the coaching that I do, set up a time on my Calendly link at calendly.com/heyboomer/20min. If you'd like to email me, you can email me at wendy@heyboomer.biz. And if you'd like to share what we're doing on Hey Boomer and have people subscribe to get our newsletter, they can do that at bit.ly/heyboomer-subscribe. I hope you will share. Next Monday, you're going to hear from two Margarets, Margaret Caterasano and Margaret Oakes. They're both professors at Furman University. And during the pandemic, Margaret Caterasano started writing plays. And then she won the opportunity to produce one of her plays off Broadway at the She New York 2022 Summer Festival. How Margaret Oakes got involved is the other part of the story. Thank you for all these beautiful comments that came in during this episode. And I appreciate all of you. And I hope that you will continue to believe that we can live with relevance, live with courage, and live with passion, and that we are never too old to set another goal or dream a new dream. My name is Wendy Green, and this has been Hey Boomer.